All right, so we are back with another Scale with Pros episode, and today is going to be amazing because I have my coach, Jeff Mask, CEO coach and founder of Mask Principles. And so, super excited to have you on here, Jeff. This has been a long time coming. I think we're in somewhere in mid 80 episode range on Scale with Pros podcast right now. But you've had such an amazing impact on my life in so many positive ways over the last, few years that I've been able to have the opportunity to learn from you. And, you've just really helped me turn into a lot better version of myself and continuing down that road. So just excited to have you here, Jeff.
Awesome. Thank you, Cody. I'm grateful to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's kick it off. Kind of share your story. How the heck did you get to being a CEO coach and to doing all of the amazing things you do now?
Wow, that is a story. I'll try to keep it as concise as possible. At the turn of the century, that's where we began. I was at it's actually totally true. I was at a web services company with a brother and best friend. We helped build up this really cool software / hosting business. They got acquired by a New York-based company, and at the perfect time. So we were based in Manhattan at that time, and it was when the bubble was really big, this .com bubble. But nobody quite knew how big it would be or when it would pop, and it popped shortly after the acquisition. And that was terrible for the acquirer and pretty good for us. But we went from about 120 some odd employees to about 20 in a week.
Wow.
We just had to go straight down to bare bones. And because I was young and cheap and gritty, I stayed on board. It's really the only reason. I was really cheap, and I worked my tail off. But my best friend and brother went down to where we're from in Arizona and started a software company where I stayed there for a couple of years. Thought I was be like, this is a great career for me. I like it. I like the startup world. I like technology. And then had my first child. And well, when my wife was going to labor, she almost died and he almost died, and it was traumatic. It was terrible. I won't even go into the details. It took me 9 years to actually even talk about that story because I was so traumatized, no joke. And she teetered between life and death for about 3 months because of really bad blood clots that weren't diagnosed well. And we had 3 different doctors, we called them affectionately Dr. Death, to say you're going to die any day. So that rocked my world, to say the least, and shifted my thinking about my career. And then I actually went into more of the healthcare side of things and moved to Southern California, where I was a rep for Pfizer. And yeah, I was a drug rep. And then did some specialty stuff and some managerial stuff. Loved that. Thought that listen to this. I literally thought I'd be a corporate dude and would be with a Fortune 50 company for the rest of my life. I love the cushy life. I love the growth, the training. But to think now that I would have been in corporate the rest of my life is hilarious to me. And I think to God too, because then I had this really crazy thing called cancer, that a malignant melanoma was discovered on my back, and I went under the knife the next day. Super, also traumatic. Also rocked my world again. You can see a pattern here. I don't really listen until things get really shifted. And the whole time I was with Pfizer, my brother and best friend were building the software company, and they kept saying, we need to work together again. And I was like, nah, I don't want to mess up family and relationships and business. I heard all the horror stories. I don't want to do that. Then cancer came, and I just thought differently. I questioned differently, and I thought that definitely could have taken me out. Melanoma is the silent killer of many people, especially men my age. I was 26, 27. And so I thought long and hard, and then made the move and jumped down this crazy software company in Arizona when we were bootstrapped. It was about $1 million in revenue. There were about 15 employees, 15. And my wife, she's like, just promise me you'll never do that. When we were in this corporate gig, this nice cushy job, and cancer changed me. And I just said, I want to do something more with my life. I just feel like there's a deeper purpose and there's a reason why I still am alive. So I jump on board there in a crazy, crazy risk. I mean, looking back, I had no business doing what I was doing and thinking that I could succeed, but I don't go down easily. I just don't. And so I actually got hired to do a particular role with strategic partnerships, only to realize that the company wasn't ready in timing and in capital So I went back to the executive team and said, well, why you hired me, we're not ready for, so do I still have a job? And just had to figure out how to create value in my own role. So fast forward a year, my brother was the CEO, and he went and found a coach because he had 6 kids trying to build a business. Anyone who's listening, can you relate? So hard to balance a really healthy home life and a successful business. And he was just pulling his hair out. And when he found a coach, I was like, I didn't even know this world existed. Literally, I'd never heard of executive coaching, CEO coaching. And when he came back from his first coaching session, he's like, I had this session. I said, dude, that's me. Like I want to coach CEOs. I see what it can do to a business. And he's like, you were born for this. And I said, I feel like I am too. But in time, I want to build businesses first. I want to coach from application and in the trenches, not just books and theory. Though I love books and theory, I wanted to combine the two. So for 10 years, I built this software company, all in the while thinking, I'm going to be coaching someday. How would I do this differently? How would I lead this team differently? And just worked at different departments and helped build different teams, and really got my 10,000 hours in coaching. And then 8 years ago, took the leap, and here we are. So I know that was kind of long, but that was super short. I skipped a lot of details. But that's why I do what I do. I just see too many CEOs are trying to build their business at the expense of their home life and their family and sometimes their faith or whatever. And I just feel like there's a better way. There's a way to really be powerful at home, have harmony at home, as well as having really great success in business. It doesn't have to be binary. You can do both. That's why I exist in this awesome business. It's pretty awesome. I love it. So cool.
So I want to ask you on that. So why do you think so many CEOs and those founder type individuals think that they can't? Like what are like the themes? Because you've coached a lot of people that are like extremely high level. Like I'm grateful for the coaching I've had with you over the years, and I know I'm a small business in comparison to some of these businesses that you're coaching. And so it's like across the board, like what are some of these reasons as to why they're thinking they can't have both? And like what are some of the things that you help them kind of uncover so that they can see that life can be done a different way? Because that is a common theme that I see across just meeting business owners, is they think they need to be slaves to their business.
Yep. Great question. It's a really, really good question. I think the answer is nuanced. One of the reasons is there's a subconscious story going on that you got to put your head down and you've got to grind for X number of years if you're really going to succeed. And by grinding, people hear that as like nothing else matters. You just got to say, hey, family, this is for you anyway. I'll put you on hold for 5 years because this is what successful people have to do. That narrative is told a lot. And it starts to just sink into people's brain, and they believe it and they just take it as full on truth. Whether they do it consciously or not, it happens. So that's one reason. Another reason is because it's freaking hard. It is so hard. And so there's a human capacity often that we hit when we're trying to have some harmony at home and build a really successful business, where we just think, I can't do both. And often people will err on building the business because they're like, if I don't have a business, I can't provide for my hopes and dreams and my family and even put food on the table. So survival mode kicks in. And that's how we're designed, biologically, physiologically. That's how we are. I mean, think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Think of what the amygdala does for us in the brainstem of helping us fight or flight. It's about survival. So when you get pushed to the breaking point, you go to survival mode. And often that's, I got to build this business because I can't do it. The third reason is this really tricky relationship with fear. And it's kind of correlated to the second reason, but it's a little different. The two most basic human fears that when you strip it all down, we're all driven by one or the other, or sometimes both. Fear of failure and fear of never being enough. And when I'm coaching with CEOs and I just ask a series of questions, through a question tree, I can almost always get it down to one or both of those reasons. And why we do things, why we show up, why we get insecure, why we won't ever let go, whatever it may be. Fear is rampant. And so what I do is help them figure out which of those three main reasons are at play. Sometimes all three of them are. And then start to rewrite their stories. Help them recondition how they think, and it all starts in their mindset.
That's super interesting on, you know, just overall, like around the mindset of like just how people are thinking and how it's like really showing up in their work. And I know one of those areas that, you know, for me is like the fear of not being enough and, you know, the fear of failure. It's like, and the work with you has really helped me in those areas. And I think about that, and it's like most of the time, I mean, I think this is just where most of the time it comes from, is like that childhood stuff of
Totally.
either family, you know, not being enough and, you know, some way or capacity at home. So then you become an adult, which is just, you just have years on the same version of you that didn't feel like they were enough as a kid. And then
Totally.
you take that into your professional life. And so
Yeah.
it's, you know, what do you like, what are some of the things that you typically help people go through to, you know, rewrite that story? So it's like if someone's listening and they're like, you know, I do feel that on a regular basis. I know I've improved from the work with you. It's a never-ending journey, you know. But you know, it's I'm at more of a place in my life where I'm like, I can not work and I don't feel this crippling guilt that I used to feel of like, oh, if I'm not working, I'm letting my team down, or I'm letting the business down, or I'm going to cause it to fail, or those types of things.
Right. Or someone's going to get better than me and do better than me and do more than me, and scarcity.
And then my business is going to fall apart because they're going to take all my clients because they're better.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can never stop. Yeah. So what I do often is, you know, in the early stages of coaching, I have them go through, and you'll remember this, an exercise that I call a life plot exercise. And what that does is helps me and them get to know the depth of their psychology in a really quick, effective way. So it's an XY axis. If you imagine the Y axis up and down, X axis left, right. On the Y axis, it's your emotional state from a +5 and then a 0 neutral to a -5, up and down, right? And then on the X axis, it's your childhood from age 2 or wherever your first memory was to about age 20. And I have them stop and look at this little graph and go, okay, now I want you to plot, hence life plot, your top 3 highest emotional states that you've been in and what occurred at that time, and your bottom 3 emotional states and what occurred. And just kind of put a little note. And often it's like, you know, age 7, little dot, and it's a -4 or -5, parents were divorced. Or age 11, I was the star on my little league team and we won the state championships or whatever, and I just felt great, right? Little moments that just help shape who they are today. And when we zoom out and look at that in a very quick 5-10 minute exercise, I can start to learn and see what drives them and what actually they value, what they're running from, what has defined them over the years, what they're trying to redefine in themselves. And so when we look at that, then we start to unpack what do those stories actually mean, and are they truly true? Are they real? And the answer is yes, they're real because they're in my head. But the real question is, but would anybody else looking at that, would they believe that that is an actual fact, or is that how you saw the world occur to you, and how do you shift that? So all I do as a coach is just help people see the story they have and shift their thinking 1 to 5 degrees. That's it. And to realize, oh, it could be differently. And I ask a series of questions that helps them see it, and then they start to rewrite. And how do you rewrite? You have to just see what it was, then see what it could have been, or maybe another person could have said that, and start talking to yourself and rewiring your brain and allowing yourself to not be defined by certain historical events or by never being enough, or if you're a failure, often those come up. And the more they see it, the more they're like, wow, I see it even more. But it just requires you to let go of all the subconscious crap we have going on and bring it to the surface so that then we can play with it. You can't play with it if it's buried.
Yeah. And I mean, being one of those people that, you know, preferred to bury it, you know, that...
Who doesn't?
Like, I don't want to think about all of that stuff because that stuff isn't fun. And that's, you know, it's like open. Why do we got to open an old wound?
Right. I'm good. I've moved on. We're set. No problem.
Everything's fine.
Until I see, oh, wait, there's another pattern and another pattern. This is the exact same problem, just in a different package. Maybe I should actually start to go a little deeper and solve something. Otherwise, we keep seeing the same issues recurring in our lives. It's normal.
Yeah. So good. It's, you know, yeah, it's just a challenge because I think, to that point, it's just people don't want to address it, but, it's severely helpful for me in a lot of ways. And so something that I'm curious on from your point of view, Jeff, because you are really big on leadership and, how people should focus on becoming transformational leaders and why that's so important. And I think from you, I've learned so much in leadership and I've continued to go down the path to become the best leader that I can become, just trying to get a little bit better consistently.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I've noticed is a lot of people don't have they don't really care to do it. And it frustrates me. Sometimes I'm sure it does for you, being that, that's like your jam too, but, or maybe not because you've made peace with it. But it frustrates me sometimes when, when I talk to different business owners. And so for business owners that are listening to this, everyone wants the next marketing strategy, the next sales tactic to increase the close rate by 3%, 5%. And look how much more money we'd make. Everyone wants that. But when it comes into actually developing yourself as a leader and developing your team as leaders of leaders, one, why do you think people don't give it the attention that it needs? And two, for people that maybe haven't started down the path of growing as a leader, what would maybe be some of your starting recommendations?
Yeah. Answer to number one, see question or point number 3 before fear of failure. There's this control that we have when we're founders and we're building something. It becomes our baby. And when we finally get to a place where we can breathe and actually live a lifestyle that is not, oh crap, it's gonna fail tomorrow, to try and let go of that and have other people help build that with you is terrifying. You know how painful it was when you started. You don't want to go back to that. And so we do all we can, again, most of this subconsciously, to avoid that pain. And so building up leaders and allowing people to take the baton and do something bigger or better than we can, our ego gets in the way and we can't let go. But I believe in the whole tenet that all problems in business are leadership problems. And it'll take me a series of 1 to 3 questions to drill down any problem in anyone's business to ground it down to it's a leadership problem. So if that's the case, and I've yet to have a case study that shows me it's not the case, then developing leaders and figuring out how to really build and scale with people is critical. If you want to scale your business, if you don't and you want to be a solopreneur, no problem. You don't really have to lead. And I'm not saying to everybody you should, but if you want to grow and scale, you need to. Otherwise, you'll either attract good talent and they'll go out the back doors almost as quickly as they came because you suck to work with and you're really, you're a tyrant or you're a fill in the negative blank. Or you just kind of hobble around and sort of kind of hire people and kind of take the risk, because it's a risk to give someone a salary and hope that they figure it out. And then people don't and they go, I'll just do it by myself better and faster anyway. Why did I even bother? And the same vicious cycle continues. It's hard. It's a lot of, it's mastering fear in your mindset and letting your ego not control you. That's, to simplify it all down, that's the why. And that's what I work with CEOs and help them work through and face the fear and then say, now what? If you do that, what's going to happen? And often we don't like those questions. We do not like to go there and we dance around it and avoid it.
Yeah. I'm just smiling because I just think about oftentimes when I'm trying to work on that with like a business partner or, companies that I'm working with and, getting new hires in, and that is one of those friction points. Or they're like, I've tried to hire this role before, and this is what it was, and this is what's happened, and so it's not going to work because we've already tried to hire for that role a couple times, and they won't want to do it. They can't do it. I have the special expertise, knowledge to be able to do it. So it's like that recurring story. And then the worst is sometimes they'll share the evidence of they came in, they were supposed to be qualified, and then they screwed stuff up, so I had to fire them. And so then now there's like this like recurring theme of like, I did hire them, they should have been able to do the job, they couldn't do the job, so now I'm just going to go back to the way that it was. And so how do you coach someone through being okay with that is going to happen? I haven't figured out how to perfectly bat and get every single hire that I ever make to be the perfect hires. Like, it just doesn't happen. Like, we've gotten a lot better at it over the years, but we still make mistakes in that.
Totally.
So how do you coach someone through being okay with you might bring someone in and you might watch them, hypothetically crash the Titanic into the iceberg, and you have to be okay with that happening.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, hiring is rough. And even if you've got a great system, you've got a great methodology, you still don't get 100%. You just don't. I've never met anybody who has a perfect hiring track record. Just, there are too many variables at play. But you can definitely increase your odds of a great hire if you've got a few things in place. The first thing is getting really clear on your culture and why do you exist? What's your purpose for existing as a company? How do you behave? What are your core values? And do you actually live them, or do you just kind of market them and make it look like you're cool and super in vogue, but really you say them, but you don't do them? Because culture is really more about what you tolerate and less about what you preach. And so if you don't have a really strong alignment to why you exist and how you behave, then how do you know if someone's a fit? You only go off of skill, and skill is only part of the equation. It's how are they going to affect the culture? Because everybody that comes into a company affects the culture. Whether that's positive or negative is totally up to how you're attracting them and how they show up. But if you don't know how you behave and you haven't defined that and codified your culture, you don't know. It's all on skill. And then all of a sudden they're hard to work with and you don't know why, and come to find out they're not really a culture fit. So figuring out your culture is point number one. Point number two is, before you even start interviewing, get crystal clear on everything around the job. In our coaching all the time, I talk about the 3 keys to winning. And whenever you get a teammate that's coming on, there are 3 keys that are critical. Get their clarity of their role, clarity of a whole, meaning as the team, and clarity of their goals. When those are clear and written down, not in your head clear, but written down so that somebody else can actually listen to them and see them and understand them, then you know what you're looking for as far as what skills are and what success looks like in the role. And then the last thing I like to do is create a process for vetting great candidates. Often people in the early stages of a business hire on gut. I did forever, and it worked for me forever. But I realized over time my batting average isn't as good as it could be. I want to improve on this, and so I married gut with data. And the data is a process. It's a methodical way of looking through and screening and processing through. So there's enough, if you think of the scientific method, there's got to be some controls and measurables so that you can have a great process. Otherwise, it's a crapshoot. And I like to eliminate that. So those 3 reasons, or those 3 ways, are how to help hiring be better. So a great culture, clarity in what success looks like in their role, and a great process of how to hire. Obviously, this is all high level, right? People are probably going, well, why do you do that? And I don't know how much time we have, but those are 3 main tenets that you got to nail when you're hiring great people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think high level is good. It just it's because people can use your resources, guys. Chat GPT to help you. Ask it questions that you should be getting clarity on in those areas to help you get that clarity. Mm-hmm. But I think back to like the first hires I ever made. Like most of the time, I don't even think we really had job descriptions for them. Like it was just kind of like, we need help. Like we're we need someone that can sell, or we
Yeah.
need someone that can keep this stuff organized around here.
Yeah.
It's like
Totally.
it's like the evolution of business of, you're just kind of scrappy startup, and you're just kind of like, your job is to do what's needed, and which is
Yeah.
not very helpful.
Right. Yeah.
um,
When your hiring strategy is avoidance of pain versus strategic scale, you've got a problem, right? And you gotta. It's hard to do because, man, when you are drowning, you're drowning, and you go back to survival mode, and you just hire the first person that's breathing or a friend of yours that might be able to do the job, and you feel like, oh, sweet, problem solved. But it's a short-term fix for a long-term problem if you don't hire right.
so true. And the kind of the hiring process that we've gotten down to is really like a 3-step, and like some roles are a little bit different, but like
Yeah.
broad strokes, 3 steps, where like that first, to your point of like that cultural interview, we always screen for cultural fit before we even go to technical. And so if they pass that, then they go to a technical interview where we actually, do like a work study or vet out whatever the thing is that they're going to be doing at the job. We want to check to see if they can actually do that versus what their resume said or their portfolio of work has said. And then we go to that third stage where usually like some sort of panel, and it's not perfect, to your point of just trying to make it a little bit better, but we created like a little interview scorecard where like everyone in the panel has the same things that they're rating off of, so we can not just off of gut make a decision on that, and kind of like rating in the cultural, technical, and then that final part of it.
It's great. Yep. That process is super helpful.
And but we still don't get it right all the time. Sometimes people still sneak in, and they you find out.
Yep. Some people are just really good at interviewing. And
Yeah.
they're great at building good rapport right away. They're especially salespeople. That's why they're great at what they do. And if you don't have a good process and you don't have a good spidey sense, you're in trouble. You gotta have both.
Yeah. So something that Ryan, one of the partners in Perfect Clean, so he actually has a new acronym that he says now, like whenever someone's like, I feel, or I'm making a gut decision, now it's just like kind of called out as if gut stands for gave up thinking. So we're not going to give up on our thinking. So we're going to try to make as data of a decision as we can.
Yeah. Data driven is helpful. But I find that some people index so far on data that they disregard their gut, right?
Yeah. And it's like a mix.
It is a mix. It's having both. But where most humans begin is gut. And intuition is where they start. And because it serves them fairly well until it doesn't. And so when you can mix your gut with a good data-driven approach, that combination of the two is I find the best way to approach it when hiring, and many things actually, but hiring specifically.
So how do you train the gut part? That's something that I don't know, exactly how you work through that. But like, how do you, it's like you have a new leader on your team, and you're trying to teach them how to hire better. You give them, hey, this is the process. These are the steps to go through. But that's the one part of like, they can't just know how to have a gut feeling, I guess, in the correct way. Like, how do you help someone get better at that?
The tough part about gut or intuition or emotional intelligence, so they all kind of run together, is often it comes through experience. And you can't teach experience. You just got to go through it. And experience means nothing to you when you're young in your career. You're like, experience, whatever. Like, I got this. Then you get older in your career and you go, turns out experience kind of is important, right? But again, the extremes are dangerous because the grit of a new leader, founder, employee is invaluable. And sometimes when you get older in your career, you get soft and you get a little lazy. And so, but when you have the wisdom combined with grit, that's amazing. So back to your point, I don't know how to teach gut. I really don't. Other than start to teach certain aspects of emotional intelligence, of self-awareness, of noting body language, of energy shifts, of how people speak and what words they're using. There's lots of things that you can do over time. But see, again, they take reps. It takes reps to just kind of watch. But one way to do it that I've done before with other leaders when I'm helping people, when I know I'm going to transition to another team, I would do the hiring with the hiring manager, and we would debrief after every interview. And I just ask certain questions around what you see here, what you think here, what you feel here, what happened here. And then I'd remind them, do you remember when such and such happened and they did this? What does that tell you? And they go, oh, like for example, when we talk about a major win that they or a major problem that turned into a win in a particular team, what happened? What language did they use? And often when they say, and I did this, and then I did that, and then I did this, but they're leading a team, they don't use we, they don't use how I led this, and then they did that. It was all me and all my glory. So little nuances helped us to realize, and they go, oh wow, yeah, I didn't even realize that. But over time, you start to pick up things that matter, but you can't really just wake up and go, oh, all of a sudden I have my gut intuition. It's great. It just comes in time. Yeah, but it can be taught, and it can be learned, and you just got to be aware of it, and you've got to be super aware and sensitive in all senses to just be super on guard and listen with all parts of your body. It's not just listening with your ears, it's listening with your eyes, it's listening with your stomach, it's listening with your heart, it's listening with your lungs. I know that sounds bizarre, but pay attention. When you're interviewing and when you're with someone, watch your physiology and listen to what's going on. When you do that, then you can start to go, I wonder what happened there. Why did that feel exciting or fearful or whatever? And those are good exercises to do as well.
It's super good. And the, just to that, like one point that you pulled out that, again, without the gut or that emotional intelligence of experience to know, interviewing someone for a leadership role, and if all they do is talk about I, it's like, how good of a leader are you really bringing if they had to be the one to solve for everything and didn't have a team that was helping solve for it? And then, you're going to bring someone in that then can't have a team that actually can get work done, and then they become a bottleneck, and then, you just go through it.
Because the root of that is insecurity. And when you hire an insecure leader, you're hiring a train wreck. And the most powerful leaders are the ones that are comfortable in their own skin, that don't have to know all the answers, that see the genius and the good in everybody around them, and they extract that genius in such a way that people realize, holy crap, I have more in me than I even realized. That's a leader. When that person can see the good in others and extract the goodness in everyone around them, but someone who's a little bit insecure or fearful or whatever it may be, they over-index on why they're so awesome, and they have to talk about why they're so great and why they do all the things, and everyone wants me to be on their team. It's just insecurity, and it gets masked with ego and pride, but really it's just deep down, I'm scared. No one says that, but in time you start to see, oh, there's a pattern here. I'm starting to understand that often the loudest person in the room and the one that has all the answers, the one that needs all the credit, is the most insecure person in the room. But it feels to our natural brain totally the opposite. The one that has all the background, all the accolades, all the this, they're the ones we should listen to. And it's often the quiet person who's just calmly listening that we want to say, what do you think? And get them to lead. So anyway, I'm going off on a tangent.
No, I love it.
It's fun to observe people. I love doing it. I love to be in airports, especially in the lounges where all the ballers play, and just watch. It's fun. It's fun to just see body language and how people are doing deals and this and that, and just to watch people's demeanor. And I'm a geek, but I love studying people. It's really fun.
That's great. I love it. So something that, for a lot of people listening, they're kind of broad strokes of the viewers, some that are high six-figure revenue businesses, a lot of them kind of this 1 to 5 million a year range, and then there are some that are, well above that as well. What do you think someone needs to do if they're, let's say, in that $1 million to $3 million and like working through, as we know, those stages of business, change, right?
Totally.
But where do you think someone that's in that 1 to 3 million that's wanting to go to 5, 10 plus million a year needs to focus on from like a leadership standpoint? Like obviously working on themselves, but what does that kind of look like, and anything that you say that they should start doing like with their team or anything like that as well?
Yeah, totally. Simply put, they need to set a clear vision at that stage. Which vision I like to pull from Jim Collins' work of a vision, and people use different words, so don't get hung up on purpose, values, mission. Like everyone says different things, but a vision in essence is why do we exist, and how do we behave, and what are we out to accomplish? Simply put, the why, the how, the what. The clearer that is, the more clearly you can lead the people that are already with you, and you can start to attract the right talent that you need to help you get to that vision. Without that, it gets super chaotic. It doesn't work well because it's stuck in your head. What used to work no longer works, and you wonder why, and you think, man, have I lost it? It's just because at a new scale, you need more clarity of the future of what that looks like. And a quote I like to say all the time is this, and I'll say it a couple times because sometimes it rattles the brain. The bigger and clearer the vision of tomorrow, the greater our ability to sustain the stress of today. So I'll say it again. The bigger and clearer the vision of tomorrow, the greater our ability to sustain the stress of today. Why? Because when you run up to issues and problems today, no big deal because you know why, to what end. There's meaning to that struggle. If you don't know where you're going and why, the struggles of the day-to-day tax you. They suck all the energy out of you because there's no purpose. You don't really know why you're doing. So at that stage, when you're at 7 figures plus, if you don't have a clear vision, you stop. You literally hit a plateau, and you don't know why. This is why. How do I know? Because I've literally consulted with thousands and thousands of businesses over the last 25 years at this stage. I'm not kidding. And it was fascinating. Like when I talk to a business owner, I can ask them 3 questions, and I know almost within about 250 to 500,000 where they are in their annual revenues, just by a few pain questions that I ask, and I know, oh, you're about right here. And they're like looking at me like, dude, did you look at my website? No, I just know those patterns. And what it does is helps business owners not like stress out. They're like, oh, this is normal? Yeah. Because when it's in your head, you feel like you're the failure, or you're the reason why it's not continuing to scale. And it's like, no, this is just, there are patterns and systems in business at different stages that once you get to certain stages, you need to go there. Once you get past 3 million, the next stage is how do I then hire to that vision? Once you get to 10 million plus, how do you then do strategic planning? When you get to 50 million plus, how do I get to actually doing leadership development and cascade to have a bench of leaders? Like there are certain things that if you don't get to, you won't scale past those numbers. So it's not you. It's just a formula in business.
Yeah, and the thing that I always, kind of laugh about in my head, just because it was me as a, newer leader, was I used to think, and I'm sure there's people listening that out there, the cynics of the world, of freaking mission, vision, crap, freaking they just need to do their job, like get the work done,
Totally. Yep, 100%. Well, why? Because you don't need it when you start.
Yeah. I just showed up, I talked to the client, I do good work, and I get it done, and they pay us.
Yep, and look at it now. Yep, it's great. But the classic cliche, what got you here won't get you there. That's the tipping point that's needed. But you're right. I felt the same for a while. I was like, oh, this touchy-feely crap. Like, dude, just get your job done. Just go do it. And it's like, yeah, that works when you're below 1 million, when you've got a few employees, everyone has multiple hats, no big deal. There's a lot of grit, a lot of scrappiness. That's a fun environment. But when you keep hitting your head against that plateau, that ceiling, and you can't really broach the 1 million and or sustain it over time and get to the 3 million and 5 million, there's a reason. It's because you've got to align all of that energy to one area. When you have all this disbursement of energy and focus, you start to get diminishing returns, and what used to work no longer works anymore. That used to work before, but now you've got more resources, more capital, more employees, more customers and clients to take care of, and if you don't align that, you stall out.
And I would say ever since we implemented those within the different companies, and whenever we're buying a new company, like one of the first things that we work on is, okay, how are we going to make sure the team's aligned to the mission, vision, core values,
Yeah.
so that we don't have those issues, because that's, through learning and being on the one side of thinking that it was cheesy and, all this woo-woo stuff, and, as people just need to have
Totally.
that, so from being in that camp to now, I'm very, I'm a huge believer in it, obviously, but it's just seeing what that impact actually has. And I think one of the other things that it really does is, as people's companies get bigger, they don't have that small team individual relationship that they used to have. And now, what I noticed when we were growing and we didn't have that is you'd have all these like clusters of different teams, and some people just had these totally different beliefs of like how things should be done at the company. There's just like a bunch of different silos of behaviors based on whoever the heck was leading those individual teams, versus centralizing, this is our mission, this is our vision, and then these are the values that we are implementing here. These are the values that we behave by here.
Right.
And because as a leader, as your business gets bigger, you're not able to touch everyone. They don't get there's not really like a boundary of like the rules that you're trying to establish. And I don't like calling it rules, but it's just like it becomes like the what everyone knows to be. Yeah.
Right. Totally. If people are listening going, well, how do I do that? There's a really great resource that I'm a big fan of. It's pretty old school, but sometimes the old school stuff, when it's still relevant today, it's solid. A lot of people have heard of Jim Collins, and they've heard of Good to Great and Built to Last, two of his classics. The issue for entrepreneurs is those books are written about Fortune 500 companies, and there's a disconnect. There's principles that are helpful, but there's one that he wrote actually before those blockbuster books called Beyond Entrepreneurship, and it's before he started going by Jim Collins. It's written by James C. Collins, which I think is hilarious. But this breaks down how you go from entrepreneur to CEO, how do you go from startup to scale up, in a way that I find is super helpful, especially chapter 2 when it talks about vision. So if you want a resource, that's a great one that I've used for years and helped other businesses use as well. That just brings it down in pretty simple language, gives some good examples and reasons why it matters for the skeptics and cynics out there. But for what it's worth, I check that out.
Awesome. No, appreciate it. So, man, there's been a lot that we've talked about. I guess what's a question that I haven't asked that I should have asked you in this, Jeff?
That's great, man. Where do I begin? Why do you actually exist as a business owner? What's your purpose on this earth? The deeper you go, the more sustainably you can grow your business. But if not, what happens is a lot of founders and CEOs unintentionally allow their business to define their identity and their purpose. And so when the business is going great, they feel like $1 million. They're great, they're super successful, they got swagger. When the business is dying or just starting to go slowly, little by little, not as successful, they feel like a loser, they feel like a failure, they feel like they don't have confidence, they don't want to see people. I see it over and over and over. And it's because unintentionally our identity has been wrapped around the business. What I do with clients is I help them decouple their identity and their purpose from their business, to let their business be an ends to a mean versus their identity. So who are you and why do you exist? What is the gift that you have to give to the world? It's, again, cliche, cheesy crap. I get it. But if not, you won't sustain your energy and your happiness and your vision if you don't have a really clear identity and a really clear purpose on this earth. It's big. Another great resource for that is Clay Christensen's How You Measure Your Life. Great book. It's one that I like to read once a year, once every other year, that just grounds you in what really matters. He was a Harvard business professor, actually the dean of the Harvard Business School, and then the professor as well, and also wrote several other great books. He's a genius. And he realized when it comes down to it, if you don't have some of these key principles in place, you lose your way. And he saw it over and over again with his HBS classmates over the years at different reunions, how literally they were in jail. One of them was the leader of Enron. So his story about the Enron crash, and he's like, I tell you, when I was at school with him, he had not a bad bone in his body. He didn't didn't want to end up in prison. That was not his goal at business school, right? But he said, little things, if you don't get principles in place early on in your career, you lose your way. And he's like, I can't tell you the number of times I've seen it. And I echo the same. So get clear on your identity and your purpose. And there are lots of great ways to do that. But boy, if you don't, it gets really, really confusing and just tiring. Otherwise, there's no reason for it, right? There's no purpose. And you just feel like it's the worst. The business model, by the way, that is most relevant with this topic as far as getting exhausted and stressed because you don't really know your vision, your purpose, influencers. Watch their personal lives. There isn't a deep identity and purpose. They're chasing the next content creation, the next thing that'll go viral so they can get a great ad buy or a great co-op or whatever they need to do. And they're terrified because there isn't a solid business framework and model, and B, there isn't a solid purpose and identity. When you don't have either, you don't sleep well at night. And it's over time, it's just not worth it. I've been married 25 years. I have 4 awesome kids. 2 of them adults, 2 of them close to, 16 and 18, I guess 3 technically adults. And I've lived long enough to realize what really matters and what gives enduring peace and happiness: to sleep well at night, to wake up energized, to have tons of love, tons of abundance, with tons of money and tons of happiness all at the same time. It doesn't have to be one or the other, but don't play the short game. That short game is all about chasing that dollar and chasing something that makes you feel good. The long game is going deep and understanding who you are and why you exist. You can see it's a bit of a soapbox for me. I get super passionate about it.
I love it.
I've just seen so many business owners not. It's like, no, don't chase that. It's good. I promise you that will end in exhaustion, fatigue, and depression. It just does. And there's a sustainable way to do it that's so much more rewarding. And you have better relationships. You just feel better about life. And man, why not? That is, to me, that's the way to do business. Do great things for great people and have scalability versus doing that short-term thing and then stressing out and thinking, man, it's going to all come crashing down. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. What happens all the time because we miss our identity and our purpose.
Oh man, and this is why I love learning from you, Jeff. Just the wholeness of your approach to coaching and just the leadership in general, and just living a great life, not living in the business is good but personal life's trash, or like personal life is good but your business suffers because you can't do both. It's just it's having a good personal life and a good business and good health. And it's like having the and is okay, and you don't have to feel guilty about it, which is
100%.
Everything on Instagram says otherwise, that you should feel guilty if you're not grinding 25/8 a week.
Exactly. In fact, can I end with a quick story? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Lest everybody thinks that I've always had it all figured out, and I'm some condescending, arrogant idiot that's saying you idiots are not doing it. Let me take a back step a little bit. Let me share a little story. As I'm grinding out building a software company, at this point we had brought on outside capital, and so that rocket fuel took the growth even faster, right? It was crazy. We were literally hiring 80 people a month. It was 80. It was a lot. And I was burning it at both ends. I had 2 kids at the time. My wife was pregnant with our 3rd. And it was terrible as far as a work-life, quote-unquote, balance. It's never balanced. And the harmony wasn't there. I came home one day, later, of course. I came home one night, I should say, and nobody was home. No 2 cute little chubby kids running around. No wife there. Car gone. I text, nothing. I call, nothing. An hour later, text, call, nothing. Hour later, call, text, nothing. 4 hours later, finally picks up. Hey, are you okay? Yeah. Which means no. Are you for those that were curious, are you okay? Yeah. Are you coming home? No. Would you want to tell me where you are? No. This was before we had like Find My iPhone or anything, right? I couldn't track, right? And I was like, oh boy, I have royally screwed up. Turns out she took the kids to go to Disneyland, and she's like, I'm done with this Arizona heat and this crap. I want to go back where we used to live. And I said, can I join you? And she said, no. Clearly you're fine without us, and dig. And I was like, oh. And so I was like, all right, I gotta retool some things. I gotta figure something out. And so I started to work on what does it mean to build a great business and have a really healthy life and wife and marriage and kids and all that. I couldn't do one or the other. I had to do both. And what would I need to do? And so that journey, that was now 18 years ago that began. And so I've been working like crazy to make sure I don't lose the most important people in my life just because I'm getting so sucked into the business. I love business. In fact, I am a workaholic. I've seen that. I get so excited about solving big problems and doing fun, like work is fun. I love it. And it's not worth the expense of losing the most important people in my life. And so how do I do both well? So that's why I'm so passionate about this, lest people think that I've always been this way. No, I listen to why I'm saying this, because don't be me. There are ways to change this and to have a really great home life and a really great business life.
Amazing. That's such a great way to wrap things up, Jeff. So, for those that, maybe are CEOs, founders of companies, and, if they wanted to learn from you or get, coaching from you potentially, where should people go to check out more?
Maskprinciples.com. That's how I coach. Those are my principles that I develop with CEOs that are, like Cody said, either private CEOs, public company CEOs, venture-backed, and pretty much everywhere in between. Cody and I coach because he's awesome. We had a mutual friend that connected us, and it was a great fit. So, that's what I do. And I don't take on lots of clients purposely. And so if you feel like it's a fit, cool, we might chat. If not, all good. I can refer you to great coaches that can help, because I'm a big believer, obviously, in coaching and in leadership development to help you scale. Otherwise, it's just lonely and tiring and so hard. Nobody talks about how hard it is. It just is, man. It messes with your head if you don't get some really great help and support around you. So if you're feeling that, you're normal. It's totally normal. People act like they've got it all figured out. Nobody does, including me. Nobody has it figured out, and that's just fine. Totally at peace with that. So I wish everybody the best, and keep building and keep doing great. I love entrepreneurs and I love entrepreneurship, man. We are a rare breed, and the world needs problem solvers and innovators and doers and people that just see problems as awesome opportunities. More of that, man. It's great. It's good stuff.
Sir. Amazing. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for being here. And for everyone listening, we'll make sure that gets in the show notes, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Thanks, Cody. Thanks, everybody.